everybody. We're just going to give everybody a second to hop on, but we'll do some quick introductions while we give people a chance to join. But I'm Ryan Tagg. I've hosted some of these webinars in the past, so you may be familiar with me. I've been with the organization for 8 years. My role is predominantly showing different products and services we offer, but I am joined by Nico Lomax and Hannah Moore, and I'll give them a minute to introduce themselves as well.
Good morning. My name is Nico Lomax. I am an HCM consultant here with Dominion Payroll and also have some operational experience with that customer service team, but happy to be here with you all today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hannah Moore, and I am the manager of DP Assist.
Yeah, great. And just a shout out so Hannah and I have worked together for, gosh, a little over 8 years now, and she's always been a rock star. Nico was such a rock star on our operations team that, we recruited him in sales. But I think what you're going to get today are a lot of people that know a lot about the system and how that system can really work effectively to help you through a partnership with Dominion Payroll. Today, what we'll be talking about are the impact of payroll mistakes and how you can leverage outsourcing to potentially eliminate or mitigate those risks. Nico, Hannah, if you can give me a heads up that you can see my screen. Can you all see it?
Yes, sir.
Awesome, thank you. So what payroll mistakes are really costing your business and how to stop them? We all already did our introductions here. But one of the biggest ways or the most effective ways that you can stop payroll mistakes is by outsourcing a portion or almost the entirety of payroll to a payroll company like us. We have over 25 years of experience. Hannah, like I said, has been in the role for, over 8 years now. And what we want to accomplish today with this webinar is what the experience looks like as a client of that service and why people really take advantage of it. Payroll mistakes can really vary, and one of the challenges when we initially started rolling this service out is the flexibility that it needed to have, because payroll mistakes come from all over the place, right? We have some examples listed here at the bottom, time card issues, last minute pay changes, deductions that are incorrect, overtime errors or missed approvals, and then the cascading issues that come as a result of those mistakes. So what we've tried to do is be flexible in terms of the support that we provide through the service, and recognizing the fact that payroll isn't just pressing process anymore. There's a lot of compliance, employment changes. You've got new hires, promotions that are tied into salary increases, benefits, deductions, lots of different types of benefits, and then of course accrual plans. Also reporting. So when it comes to payroll, it's never just that simple. And what I'd like to do now is really defer to Hannah, because I just talk about it, right? Like at a very high level, I have an understanding of how things work, but Hannah is really in the trenches supporting our clients. So I want to go through some questions that I have for her, and hopefully I'll learn something too, and Nico and I. But so Hannah, what are some of the most common payroll challenges you see customers struggling with before they come to DP Assist?
So truly inconsistency with the processes, which honestly makes it difficult to streamline the payroll, along with a lot of manual entry errors, including small but some important changes, such as, pay adjustments being overlooked. This is compounded by reliance on a single person to manage payroll with no backup or secondary review in place, which is ultimately causing a lot of payroll errors and a lot of turnovers within the company.
Yeah, I used to say, like, what happens if this person that is the only person that knows how to process payroll gets hit by a bus? I now say, I shouldn't have even said that, right? What if they win the lottery? Let's use a positive example, but it is very true. And Hannah, that's a great point, that oftentimes there is only one person that understands how to process payroll. What are the biggest risks when one employee becomes the only person that knows how to do things?
So I feel like when your entire payroll process really depends on one individual, you're really exposed to serious risks. So if the person quits without notice, gets sick, or otherwise is just unavailable to process payroll, there may be no one else that knows how to run payroll, because truthfully, not many payroll processes are documented today. They're all within one person's head. So you're really relying on that single point of knowledge that puts everything at risk for people not being paid out in a timely manner.
Yeah, and I give Hannah a hard time because she is quite possibly the most organized person I've ever met, but that highlights why she's been so successful in the role. One of the things that we do is document all those steps so that if you do have one person, maybe in the future you can add somebody in. That's a really great point to mention. What is the most, I don't know the answer to this. I'm really curious what the answer to this one is. What's the most expensive payroll mistake you've seen a company make?
So one of the biggest one is honestly incorrectly entering a pay change. So instead of putting the annual salary in the annual salary spot, they'll put it in the per pay spot. So let's say example like 80,000, then the person gets $80,000 in that per pay, and a lot of times they end up leaving the company and you're not getting the money back.
How do I get one of those mistakes? That's that's certainly a big one. And guys, I forgot to mention this earlier. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the question or the chat. We'll answer them as we go along. So walk us through. So we identified some of the risks and why people would use it, but walk us through what a typical payroll cycle after a client has moved to DP Assist, the outsourcing solution. What does that look like?
So really each client is very different because not one client is the same. So the process will differ slightly based on the client's responsibility list, but really the overall process is pretty fairly consistent. For a client running payroll on like a Wednesday, for example, the representative begins prepping the payroll on Monday. So for a client using iSolve Time, we'll use that as our main example. We're going to send over any outstanding items. So let's say missing punches, pending PTO, anytime that looks a little wonky or questionable, like someone working a 24-hour shift in a non 24-hour residential type of environment. So we're going to send that over to you on Monday. So that way you have time to get back with your employees, make sure, is this correct? What's your out punch? And then you send that back to us for us to edit. So by the time payroll is ready to run on Wednesday, we're going to be able to get you those reports ASAP, give you all day until 3 p.m. processing deadline to give you time to review it, catch any outstanding items that you might not have sent over, and then of course give that final approval before we click process. That's a typical payroll week, but we'll still talk to you every single day and inside our business hours, of course.
Got it. That's awesome. And this next question is really important because we can never do everything, right? If you talk to somebody and it's like, we're going to do everything for you, you might be looking at it like a PEO, or if you're familiar with that, that might be true with them. But generally speaking, that you're not going to find somebody that's going to do everything. So one of the questions I had was, what tasks does the client still own versus what Hannah, you and your team handle?
So we will like establish a statement of work to determine what Dominion Payroll is going to handle and the client handle. So we'll, like I said on the other question, it's going to differ slightly based on what the responsibility list is. But really some of the common things we see is just making sure to provide us manual entries. Since we're not within that office day in and day out, we're not going to know that John Doe needs a bonus this special unless you tell us. Same with employee updates, if there's pay changes, salary changes, as well as giving that final approval are some of the common ones we see, along with the employer portion of the I-9, just because we want you to make sure you see list A or list B and C to make sure everything is legitimate for the I-9 completion.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought. I mean, that last one is a really good point to bring up. And it is extremely important with this service that we identify that scope of work, both from our perspective and what responsibility still lies with the client. So rest assured, we will run through that with you if you're interested in that. Utilizing the platform, we'll go through all of that. How much time would you say that people, like clients, get back for each payroll, for example?
So truthfully, like the other ones, it's really going to depend on how much the client decides to give the responsibility list off to Dominion Payroll. Some clients really want to still stay very hands-on, and some clients want to give everything to us. So you really can go back to, getting, let's say it's a 3-hour process, you can get back 2 hours and 45 minutes because you might only want us to spend 15 minutes talking to you each week just for the final approval. But it's really what you guys want to give off to us to handle that really will show how much time you will get back in.
Well, you kind of led into the next question, which is, what does communication look like with you and your team, and what happens? Like I just got an email this morning. I need to do like a same day pay for a bonus check. How do I handle that? What do I do?
So each specialist is going to have a direct email and phone number that clients can reach out to during operating hours. So instead of round robining through 8 to 10 different agents, you're going to have that direct line or direct email to reach that direct representative each day in and out. And as well as like last minute changes, if those come in, our team is very easily adaptable. We are composed of 5 people with all different years of experience, up to like 30 years of payroll. So last minute payroll challenges are super easy for us to handle. You can communicate that through us through a direct email or a phone, depending on if we're approaching the deadline. And if for some reason the change does come in after the payroll's been processed, if we're able to void that and pull it back because day in hasn't sent, we can do that. Or we can always run a special to correct anything that's needed.
God, that's awesome. And yeah, I'm going to ask you if I'm correct in my understanding of this. It's always good to check. But DP Assist and your team are not involved in implementation directly, where you're implementing the clients. My understanding is that you'll be aware of it. Like if you were to sign up when you signed up with Dominion, you're aware of it, implementation, and then you take over after the fact. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. And we'll do like a little sidecar with the implementation rep, just to make sure we're watching the setup, everything that's going into it, earnings deduction. So it's a streamlined transition over when they do go live with the representative.
And if the goal is for Dominion to take over as much as possible, right? Like, we talked about we can't do everything, right? But everything that we outlined in that scope of work, what does the timeline look like to get to kind of the end of that process?
So depending on if you're coming directly as a brand new client to a client that's already existing with Dominion, going off a client that's already existing, as soon as you sign that statement of work with us, we can turn around ASAP. So let's say you sign it on Friday and you want to go live Monday. Monday, you can start sending us all your email requests and phone calls that day, and then we usually will shadow about 2 payroll runs. So let's say your weekly payroll, you know, we'll turn in 24 hours. You can usually turn around. We'll shadow the first payroll, the second payroll, and then by the third payroll, we'll go live. Of course, if you have a very simple, straightforward payroll, we'll shadow one time and then we'll go live. But we usually can turn around within a week.
Wow, this is being recorded, right? That is, I'm gonna hold you to that, Hannah. No, that's really great, and I'm joking. I have personally experienced that turnaround time with Hannah and her team. I'm always just very impressed by how quickly they do that. And I touched on your organization, your level of organization earlier, and the fact that you're just so good at it. And I'm always so impressed by how good you are at it. Why is that important, though?
So, I mean, with organization, we need to make sure when it comes to payroll processing that we have everything written down. So, from manual entries that might be 90 days out that we need to pay out, such as like a bonus, to knowing that someone's being terminated within a few weeks and has to get a final pay. Having everything documented helps not only for our audit trail, but for recording purposes, but also when it comes to documenting items such as the payroll process, which is a piece that we will do for you. It helps to create that guide for the client. So let's say the payroll representative on your account's out sick or on PTO and someone else needs to handle the payroll for that week. We now have a comprehensive guide for another representative to step in and streamline without any, hiccups in the payroll process and running it just like your representative does. Or if you decide at any point that you want to take payroll back in house because everyone loves doing payroll, it's so much fun. If you decide that you want to do that, we will have that comprehensive guide for you to take back and give to another payroll administrator to be like, here's how the payroll was being processed, follow these steps, and you'll be able to process it.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. We're not gatekeeping this information. When Hannah puts that together, a process, I think Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong, we identify better ways to manage payroll, to process payroll, just by virtue of how long her and her team have been doing it, and Dominion Payroll in general. But we don't hold on to that. We do pass that back to you if you want an outline to onboard someone to take our job, right, and bring somebody on site. We'll be sad, but we'll understand, right? Sometimes it is good to have someone on site. We just want to get you to a point where you can do that effectively and quickly. And so just a couple more questions. What's a customer success story that you'll never forget? I like this question.
So there's a particular client that like always comes in mind when I think about this type of question. So they were actually one of the very first companies that decided to take a risk when DP Assist was created. And through many rounds of turnover within their executive team, we were still able to streamline their payroll process. But one of the best things about this, I feel like it goes outside of like what DP Assist can do, is that we not only grew close in our partnership, we honestly became friends. So it's to the point where even after work, we would go get appetizers and just talk about just talk about everything that's happened with our lives and stuff, because we're not only a partnership, but we're going to become like a friend in this type. So I mean, I feel like just not only just working together as a partnership in the service, like we really want to become close and integrated as if we're an employee working with you. And I feel like that's one of my success stories because we end up becoming so close outside of the partnership too.
Yeah, and I really don't think anything can highlight what Dominion Payroll is about more than what Hannah just described. That really is our differentiator between some of our larger competitors. Is, you know, we all live and work in the community and we want to connect. That's really great. I'm going to ask you later if it's who I think it is. I don't, I'm not 100% possible. I'll ask you. But the last question I have before I kick it over to Nico to kind of go through some of the audience questions. What's the biggest improvement that clients mention after, say, 6 months?
I would say truly streamlining the payroll process, which has helped result, if not eliminate, all the payroll errors that they are seeing in their company. There's so many times that there's just so many hands in the pot that, like, you know, somebody will send this to one person, then send it to another person, and that's the final person that does the payroll. Sometimes it's so overcomplicated that they find that after 6 months that we really have been able to streamline just what that process is, which really takes out a lot of the legwork, give them time back, and really reduce, if not eliminate, those payroll errors.
Yep. And, you know, just talking about pricing, it's certainly less expensive than hiring a full-time employee. And it can also, and that's a really just a great point to make, it can also offload the burden of an experienced employee that's doing more manual tasks. And then you can allocate that resource and their experience into maybe things that are better served using their time. So we're really not trying to eliminate positions per se, but give people the freedom to spend their time in more productive ways. So thank you, Hannah. And with that, we do have some audience questions. Feel free to keep them coming if you have additional ones. But Nico, I'll let you take over, my friend.
Of course, Hannah, thank you. I've really enjoyed this. And like Ryan mentioned, we took a couple tips as well. So thanks for that. But the first question we have from the chat is, can Dominion Payroll or DP Assist calculate prorated pay when a new hire starts or when an employee leaves in the middle of a pay period?
Yes, sir. That is actually one of our big selling point, is that we make sure that anybody that is salaried, that if they come on board or if they leave with their company, their pay is going to be prorated to make sure they're never overpaid or underpaid.
Awesome. Awesome. Next question we have is, if our company decides to add another state to employ from, will you do the setup for the tax accounts? And also they wanted to add that they're 100% virtual, which means they probably have multiple remote employees across the country. So how would we handle that situation?
So we will set up that work location, but as for the tax account, that isn't a side item that the client would have to set up. However, we do have a tax service where you can allow our tax team to set up that account for you. So if that's something that you want to do, like Dominion would offer, say, hey, we have a solution. If you don't want to set up the account yourself, we can get the tax team to set it up for all the jurisdictions, whether it's withholding, unemployment, local taxes, they would get those set up for you.
Great. Yep. And we have that solution where it offers a wizard and a platform as well, where it'll guide the client to be able to get through that process for all the additional states. And I also like to mention we have a website, dominionpayroll.com/forms, that makes it easy for you to find the tax registration links for your state. All right. And let's see, what other questions do we have here? How many employees do you typically support for the average client?
So honestly, our employee count ranges from 1 employee in this service to up to 400. I will take into account every employee, like every rep that has an account, to make sure the capacity is within their standard, make sure they're not over stacked. So I do take into account the employee count that a client's coming on board to make sure that we can service them properly. But usually we see about 1 to 400 is the client range that we work with right now.
Great, great. And I believe this one was partially answered, but can you handle bonuses, commissions, and off-cycle payrolls?
Of course, we can do all bonuses, all commission, incentives, mileage, off-cycle payrolls, you name it, we can help you out with that.
Great. And the last one we have here, let's see. What do we do if we already have an HR or payroll administrator?
So truly, we're not here to try to replace anybody. We're truly here to help assist them. So if you already have an HR or a payroll administrator, we're here to help alleviate and work alongside them to help alleviate any of their pain points. So that way their workload can lighten up and you can give them more projects so they're not bogged down with payroll.
Great. And let's see, do we have any other questions from the chat or any additional comments based on what Hannah mentioned just now?
So, I mean, I just have a quick note. Like Hannah and I really, she was the driving force. I don't think this would have been a successful program without her. Actually, I shouldn't say, maybe, right? It definitely wouldn't have. So, absolute kudos to her. But I can't tell you how many times, Nico, you probably agree with me, how many times you've heard payroll administrators say that they process payroll on the balcony of their vacation home. Right?
Yeah.
They have to bring their laptops to the hospital or some crazy stories like that. It goes back to what we were talking about initially, where there's just one person that holds that knowledge. And, it's a kind of what Hannah was just saying. This isn't intended to replace that person. They're integral to the organization most often. It's to allow them to take a vacation. It's to allow them to take a break, right? And get that time off, get away without having in the back of their head, oh man, I have to process payroll. I have to work during this time period. So that's the most impactful statement I typically hear where we're able to help. But
and to your point, even with those administrators that are wearing multiple caps, oftentimes you want to go handle the responsibilities that help grow your business. So being able to offload payroll for another team member that's experienced is provides the most peace of mind you can ask for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Make more money for the business, right? You can't do that if you're processing manual entries. I don't think you're processing payroll. Well, I think that's all the questions we have. Just want to highlight, the purpose of these webinars is simply to inform our clients of the options that they have should they arise. We understand that in particular, a service like this, it's also very timing based. If you need the help, things may be going well now. We want to make sure that you're aware that we do have this level of support in the event that you need it. So feel free, both Nico and myself are happy to sit down with you if you want to just simply take a look at your account and make sure you're taking full advantage of the platform. You want to learn more about DP Assist. You want to make sure you're up to date on all the new services and solutions that we rolled out. We are absolutely here to help. And then Hannah and her team, if you should decide to evaluate the solution, would be there for you too. So thank everybody for your time. Hannah and Nico, thank you so much for joining. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the week.
Great week. Bye.